They came with drums of void light and voices tuned to fear. I was on watch when the first intimidation broadcast slammed into our outer relays, a wall of soundless pressure that made bones ache and screens frost with alien sigils. The message was simple in intent, ornate in cruelty. We are older. We're stronger. Kneel or be corrected. Around me, officers stiffened, hands hovering near controls, training colliding with instinct. I felt something else rise instead, a quiet disbelief that curdled into amusement. The galaxy expected us to flinch. That expectation was the mistake. Our enemies called themselves the Car Dominion, a coalition forged by conquest and ritualized terror. Their ships formed up beyond Pluto, a cathedral of blades and spines, hulls etched with the names of broken worlds. They broadcast again, magnifying the threat, projecting images of cities falling, atmospheres burning away like breath on glass. The intimidation doctrine was ancient and effective. Species bent before the first shot was fired. Economies collapsed. Leaders surrendered. It saved the Dominion time. On Earth, the feed went global. I watched faces tighten, jaws set. There was fear, yes, but threaded through it was something stubborn and irreverent. Memes appeared within minutes, mocking the alien pageantry. Comedians live-streamed riffs on the Baroque threats. Children asked if the spiky ships were compensating for something. The Dominion could not hear the laughter yet, but it was spreading, a contagion they had no immunity to. Command convened. Plans were reviewed. None involved capitulation. We sent a reply, brief and polite, thanking the Dominion for the demonstration and requesting a window to respond formally. They granted it, certain the delay signaled panic. They were wrong again. The delay was for timing. When the response window opened, we did not answer with words. We answered with arrival. From beyond the heliosheath, from folded distances the Dominion had never bothered to map, human warships translated into real space. Not a parade. A joke told with perfect deadpan. The first ship came through sideways, rotating as if it had slipped on cosmic ice. Its hull was matte black, unadorned, carrying a name painted small and human on the prow.
Punchline.
Then more followed, dozens, hundreds, laughter echoing through open channels because someone, somewhere, forgot to mute the comms. Pilots chuckled. Engineers hooped. A captain cleared her throat and failed to hide a grin as she called stations. The sound carried, broadcast deliberately, contaminating the Dominion's immaculate menace with something they had never modeled. Humor. Our ships did not bristle with spikes. They carried smooth geometries, modular scars, and weapons slung like afterthoughts. They moved with casual confidence, vectoring into positions that suggested practice, not bravado. The Dominion hailed us, voices sharp with confusion shading into anger. Identify yourselves, they demanded. Explain your disrespect. I leaned into the mic. With the help, I said, and cut the channel. The first engagement did not begin with fire. It began with proximity. Human ships drifted close, violating the Dominion's sacred distance protocols, close enough for hulls to reflect alien inscriptions like funhouse mirrors. Our electronic warfare bloomed, playful and precise, swapping threat glyphs for cartoons, retuning fear frequencies into jaunty rhythms. The Dominion's command nets stuttered as laughter bled into their channels, a mocking echo they could not silence. When they fired, it was disciplined and devastating. When we replied, it was surgical and humiliating. Their forward cathedral lost a spine, cleanly, as if embarrassed into shedding ornament. A second ship found its weapons refusing to acknowledge targets, confused by false positives shaped like applause. The Dominion had prepared for terror. They had not prepared for ridicule backed by competence. I watched the battle unfold and felt a strange calm. This was not rage. This was relief. Humanity had carried fear long enough to learn how to put it down. We fought because we had to, but we laughed because we chose to. The Dominion's formation broke, not from damage alone, but from doubt. Doubt is fatal to empires built on intimidation. As the last exchange faded and our ships held position, still chuckling, I realized the galaxy was watching again. Not astonished this time. Amused. And that, somehow, felt far more dangerous. The Dominion regrouped in silence, which was new. Their doctrine treated silence as weakness, yet now it stretched between us like a held breath. Our fleets maintained position, not pressing the advantage, because command understood something the enemy did not. Intimidators depend on momentum. You break the rhythm, you break the spell. Around me, status lights pulse steadily, a calm heartbeat after laughter's spike. The galaxy leaned closer, curious how mockery would resolve into outcome. They tried again, but subtler. A diplomatic channel opened, wrapped in false courtesy, heavy with veiled threats and historical footnotes. They spoke of inevitability, of borders drawn by blood and time. I listened, cataloging the cadence. It was still intimidation, just wearing a silk glove. When they finished, I waited long enough to make them uncomfortable, then thanked them for their concern and asked whether they required medical assistance for the structural damage to their lead vessel. The channel went dead. That was when the real test began. The Dominion launched auxiliaries, fast and vicious, designed to overwhelm sensors and provoke mistakes. Our ships responded like veterans in a bar fight. No rush, no panic, just efficient movement. Point defenses tracked without flourish. Countermeasures sang. Somewhere, a pilot laughed again, softer now focused. Humor had done its work. What remained was discipline. I saw the moment the Dominion understood. Their auxiliaries died without spectacle, their losses accruing without narrative. Intimidation needs a story. We denied them one. Their commanders pushed harder, escalating to heavier weapons, desperate to reclaim the emotional high ground. We countered by saving their crews. Boarding teams punched through wrecks to pull survivors into med bays, broadcasting the rescues openly. The message was cruel in its kindness. We could destroy you. We choose not to. The galaxy noticed. Signals spiked from distant systems, observers, traders, rivals, watching the feed propagate. The Dominion's reputation wavered, the myth of terror fraying as laughter echoed across channels they could not control. Their allies hesitated. Their vassals watched carefully. Fear is contagious, but so is its absence. I felt the balance tilt, not toward us alone, but away from them. Command authorized a demonstration. One ship only. It translated into the Dominion's rear formation and powered down its weapons. Then it began a slow, deliberate maneuver, threading between hostile hulls with centimeter precision, tapping armor plates like knuckles on doors. Each tap was logged, time-stamped, and transmitted. We know where you are. We know how close we can get. When the ship exited, untouched, the Dominion's formation loosened. No doctrine survives embarrassment. They answered with fury. A capital weapon charged, its field collapsing stars in miniature. I braced, knowing restraint has limits. Our counter came not from guns, but from math. The weapon fired and missed everything, its targeting fooled by a mirror of probabilities that made certainty slippery. The discharge tore a wound in space that healed itself, leaving nothing but shame. The Dominion held across open comms, rage cracking ritual into noise. I spoke again, quieter. This ends now, I said. Withdraw. Tend your wounded. Keep your borders. We'll keep ours. It was not mercy. It was an offer to preserve face. Empires rarely accept such gifts. They refused. The order came down clean and cold. Disable, not annihilate. The next minutes were work, precise, exhausting, inevitable. Spines fell. Drives failed. Command ships went dark. When it was done, the Dominion fleet drifted, alive but humbled, their terror doctrine in ruins. Our ships held station, laughter gone now, replaced by the steady professionalism that had always been there. As we rendered aid and established corridors for retreat, I caught a glimpse of the wider feed. The galaxy was not cheering. It was recalibrating. Intimidation had failed against something simpler and harder to crush. Competence paired with joy. I wondered who would test that next and how soon. After the Dominion withdrew, space felt louder. Debris fields whispered of battles that had almost been stories of terror. Now footnotes rewritten by restraint. Our ships stayed vigilant, not celebratory. Victory earned through humiliation has a way of attracting challengers who believe they can do intimidation better. The galaxy watched the aftermath closely, and so did we, aware that reputation spreads faster than fleets. The Dominion's silence fractured within days. Breakaway signals leaked from their periphery, captains arguing, vassal states questioning tribute, allies requesting clarification they had never dared to ask before. Intimidation had been their glue. Without it, they were discovering gravity the hard way. We did not interfere. Collapse, when it comes, should belong to those who built the structure. Instead, new voices reached us. Cautious, formal, curious. Species that had paid the Dominion's taxes in blood wanted to know what humans wanted in exchange for protection. The question unsettled command. We wanted nothing that required obedience. That answer confused them more than threats ever could. I explained it on an open channel, knowing the galaxy was listening. We don't sell fear, I said. We don't buy loyalty. Stand with us if you choose. Stand alone if you must. Just don't kneel. The laughter returned then, not from our pilots, but from somewhere farther out, echoing oddly through translation layers. Other cultures had humor. They had just buried it. The realization rippled outward, subtle and dangerous. Empires endure uncertainty. Humor dissolves it. The Dominion tried one last time, not with fleets, but with spectacle. They detonated a world at their frontier, broadcasting the annihilation as proof that terror still worked. The galaxy recoiled. Our feeds filled with outrage, grief, fear. The old calculus returned, whispering that intimidation was inevitable, that power always revealed its teeth. I felt the weight of that moment settle like ice in my lungs. This was the pivot. If we answered in kind, the story would reset. We did not. Instead, human ships translated into the system's edge and began rescue operations before the blast wave cooled. We harvested survivors from radiation shadows, ferried them to safety, and transmitted the coordinates of habitable worlds offered by volunteers across the spiral. We did it fast, openly, with laughter absent, but resolve iron-hard. The Dominion's broadcast was hijacked mid-loop, replaced by images of evacuees breathing again. Terror drowned in logistics. The galaxy changed its posture. Observers began to appear, not warships, but monitors, archivists, trade envoys flying flags of neutrality older than our sun. They requested data, interviews, access to doctrines. They wanted to understand the mechanism. How had we dismantled intimidation without becoming tyrants ourselves? I told them the truth. We practiced. We failed. We learned where fear belonged and where it did not. We laughed because laughter reminded us that enemies were not gods. Privately, command worried. Attention is pressure. Pressure can fracture even good steel. Our doctrine spread faster than our capacity to defend it. Movements formed around human space, some sincere, some opportunistic. Pirates painted smiles on their hulls and claimed inspiration. We hunted them down without humor and handed them to courts that worked. The distinction mattered. Then came the invitation. A conclave of powers convened beyond mapped space, alarmed by the destabilization of intimidation-based order. They requested human presence as observers, mediators, something new they had no word for yet. The risk was obvious. Walk into a room of empires built on fear, and they will try to reassert the old rules. Decline, and the vacuum would be filled by something worse. I was chosen to attend. Witness had become role. As our delegation prepared, the Dominion made its final move. A message arrived, stripped of ornament, raw with desperation. They offered alliance, reform, anything to avoid irrelevance. I felt a flicker of pity, quickly banked. Reform offered under duress is theater. We declined politely and suggested they begin by apologizing to the dead. The channel closed. For good, I suspected. Our ship slipped into transit toward the conclave, laughter long gone now, replaced by a careful seriousness. The galaxy was no longer amused. It was adjusting. Intimidation had failed once, publicly. Others would test whether that failure could be reversed. I stared into the dark between stars, aware that we had become something dangerous, without meaning to. Proof that fear was optional. And proof, once given, could not be recalled. The conclave assembled in a volume of space, so empty it felt intentional, a hollow carved between rival territories where no flag could claim gravity. Our ship arrived last by design. I felt the eyes before I saw them, sensors blooming with signatures layered in caution and pride. Empires that had ruled by dread now sat arranged like nervous jurors, each measuring how loudly humanity breathed. They spoke first in rehearsed tones, praising stability, lamenting recent disruptions without naming the dominion. I listened, cataloging evasions. When my turn came, I refused the script. I spoke of laughter turning to work, of restraint chosen under fire, of rescue replacing revenge. The chamber stirred. Some found it naive. Others found it treasonous to tradition. All found it inconvenient. A delegate draped in ancestral symbols asked the question they all carried. If fear no longer ruled, what did we offer instead? I answered slowly. Accountability. Transparency. Boredom. Peace, I explained, is not glorious. It is repetitive. It demands maintenance and patience. Intimidation is exciting. It burns bright and burns out. The murmurs sharpened. Empires despise boredom. The conclave pressed, seeking commitments, alliances, enforcement mechanisms. We declined each hook with careful courtesy. Humanity would not be a cudgel. We would share methods, not mandate outcomes. That answer unsettled them more than refusal. A system without a tyrant requires participants to police themselves. Many had forgotten how. Between sessions, private channels bloomed. Offers of technology. Threats wrapped as warnings. Predictions of our collapse, once novelty faded. I accepted the conversations and gave nothing back. Outside the chamber, observers recorded everything. The galaxy's accountants were busy, recalculating risk. Then the interruption came. A fringe coalition attempted to resurrect the old order by force, striking a neutral hub to prove terror still worked. Their broadcast cut across the conclave mid-sentence. The room froze. Eyes turned to us. This was the test they had arranged, whether by conspiracy or convenience. Would humanity escalate? Would laughter return sharpened into cruelty? We did neither. Our response was procedural. We dispatched relief, activated sanctions, and opened corridors. We invited the conclave to observe every step in real time. No speeches. No threats. Just work. The attackers' momentum died in the glare of documentation. Their allies defected within hours, unwilling to be archived as villains. The chamber changed. Fear did not vanish, but it lost its monopoly. Delegates began asking how to audit themselves, how to unwind rituals of dread without civil war. I warned them it would be messy. I promised nothing but effort. That, surprisingly, was enough to begin. As the conclave adjourned, a final message reached me on a channel too clean to trace. Not a government. Not an empire. A watcher. They acknowledged the shift and offered a caution. Systems resist change by selecting scapegoats. Humanity, they implied, was becoming one. Attention was consolidating. Expectations were crystallizing. Our ship departed under quiet escort. Across the feeds, movements stirred, inspired and threatened in equal measure. I felt the weight return, heavier now, shaped like responsibility rather than fear. We had pulled a thread. The fabric was moving. In the dark of transit, command forwarded an alert marked urgent. Multiple powers were mobilizing simultaneously, not against us, but toward each other, recalculating under the assumption that fear's era was ending. Transitions are when accidents become catastrophes. I closed my eyes and steadied my breath. We had shown the galaxy how to laugh at intimidation. Now, we would learn whether it could survive the silence that followed. Outside the viewport, stars slid past like patient witnesses, indifferent to our ethics, yet sensitive to outcomes. I recorded notes I hoped no one would need, contingencies for misinterpretation, for pride, for panic. Somewhere, A child would ask why adults chose differently this time, and someone would try to answer honestly. The lesson was not courage or kindness alone, but consistency under pressure. If we failed that, laughter would curdle into legend. If we succeeded, nothing would look heroic, only necessary, repeated, and shared. That was the risk we had accepted, quietly, together. History rarely rewards the careful, yet survival depends on them remembering restraint when applause fades and consequences arrive uninvited. The mobilizations did not collide at first. They orbited one another like storms learning new winds, fleets pausing at borders that had once been crossed without thought. The galaxy held a fragile stillness, not peace, but the absence of terror's drumbeat. That absence was dangerous. Empires accustomed to fear mistake quiet for weakness. I felt it in the data, a tightening spiral of miscalculation. Then the accidents began. A patrol misread a vector. A warning shot clipped an unmanned relay. A defense grid woke from ritual sleep and fired on a ghost. Each incident was small, deniable, survivable. Together, they formed a pattern the Watchers flagged in red. Transitions kill more civilizations than wars. Everyone moves at once, and no one knows which rules still apply. Human space became a crossroads. Refugees arrived first, not in waves, but threads, slipping through cracks before borders slammed shut. We processed them with efficiency that looked like indifference from the outside. It wasn't. It was discipline learned under pressure. We could not afford spectacle. The galaxy was already writing stories about us. A message arrived from the Watchers, collective and grave. They would intervene if thresholds were crossed. Intervention would be impartial. Impartiality, in their lexicon, meant catastrophic correction. I felt a cold clarity settle in. We had pulled fear from the system. If chaos followed, we would be blamed whether or not we deserved it. Proof becomes liability when copied imperfectly. Command convened an emergency council and asked a question no doctrine covered. Should we reintroduce fear, selectively, to stabilize the transition? A demonstration sharp enough to remind empires that consequences still had teeth. The room went silent. I imagined laughter returning, brittle this time, and hated the thought. Fear is easy. Once invited back, it never leaves alone. I spoke last. If we do this, I said, we become the thing we replaced. Not immediately, not obviously, but inevitably. The vote was close. Restraint won by a margin that felt like a coin toss. We would attempt something riskier. We broadcast an invitation, not to empires, but to publics. An open ledger of incidents, intentions, and limits. A shared protocol for de-escalation written in plain language and translated without ornament. We offered to host mixed crews, shared patrols, transparent audits. We asked for volunteers. The galaxy laughed again, uncertain and nervous, but it listened. Ordinary beings stepped forward faster than leaders. That frightened the powerful. The backlash was immediate. A bloc declared the ledger subversion. Another accused us of cultural imperialism. A third armed in secret. Then the shot came. A real one. A convoy carrying civilians under mixed escort was hit at the edge of a contested system. Survivors screamed across open channels. The stillness shattered. Every eye turned to us. I felt the weight crush my ribs. This was the moment intimidation would have answered cleanly. Retaliate. Overwhelm. End the argument with fire. Our fleets moved, not toward the attacker, but toward the convoy. Rescue first. Documentation live. We named the shooter without adjectives and invited their rivals to observe the investigation. It was procedural to the point of cruelty. The attacker panicked. They escalated, firing again, this time deliberately. Lives were lost. The Watchers' thresholds flared. Intervention loomed, vast and indifferent. I realized then the final cruelty of proof. If fear had been the language of the galaxy, accountability was a dialect no one spoke fluently yet. Command asked me for the call. I authorized a single strike, narrow and unmistakable, disabling the attacker's weapons and nothing else. No laughter. No taunts. We broadcast the math, the margins, the intent. The attackers' fleet went dark, alive, exposed. Their allies scattered. The Watchers' thresholds dimmed. Not gone. Dimmed. Afterward, the feeds were chaos. Praise and condemnation braided tight. Some said we had failed our own lesson. Others said we had saved it. I did not know which was true. I only knew we had crossed another line, thinner than the first. As the dust settled, a final message arrived from the Watchers, quieter than before. You are approaching parity, it said. Not in power. In consequence. The galaxy will respond to you as it responds to itself. Outside the viewport, fleets repositioned, treaties rewrote themselves, and somewhere, someone prepared a test sharper than intimidation, subtler than war. I watched the stars and understood the new danger. The galaxy was learning from us. And learners make mistakes.